Hi, I'm Ariel. You're watching She Wants the Diction, and today I'm going to be doing a bit of a combo thrifted book haul, plus talking about some books that I have either bought or I'm going to be buying friends, family members for the holidays. If you are one of my close friends or family and I usually send you a book, maybe don't watch this video. I don't know how many people in my real life are watching me, but if you are, I mean, if you spoil yourself, I don't really care. I'm the type of person that, like, if I get a present before Christmas, like, I want to open it because I don't really care about the actual date. Like, I'm that way about all holidays, really. It's like, I don't really care. If you want to spoil yourself, I mean, like, that's fine. You're just not going to be surprised. So anyways, let's get into the video. Oh, also, I have a new video camera. It's a video camera, not like a camera. Very fancy. So I don't have to worry about the recording cutting off anymore or making sure that the sound's working or any of that shit. So it was pretty expensive. Like, it can record in 4K. And me and Adam, like, split the cost or whatever because he also wants to use it for, like, some vlogging stuff that he's doing. Like, he has his own channel. And I also wanted to address, I know that I keep talking about wanting to change the type of videos that I'm making and not really do book videos as much or really anymore, and kind of switch into, like, video essays and more, like, topical videos. And that is true, but right now I just feel like I don't have the time or energy. I don't have the shit together to, like, be able to do that yet. So I might start trying to make that a thing next year, because right now I am working on editing my own poetry collection. And I'm not, like, I don't have, like, publishing contacts. Like, I'm nobody, okay? Like, I've never been published, but I'm looking over my poems from the past, like, 5 to 6 years. I don't really want to go back further than that because my writing's not very good, but I'm looking at those poems and trying to put select ones together into a book, make it flow, you know, pick titles, edit it. So I've been working on that nonstop for like a week, and I really want to try to maybe submit it some places, try to see if I can get, you know, published or accepted or something like that, because I've always wanted to be a writer and I've always written poetry, but it's just, I've never actually, like, pursued it like that. And I never felt like I had my shit together enough to, like, to actually pursue the things that I want to do in my life. But I just feel like with, you know, my dad passing away, which was just a couple months ago from COVID, we weren't, like, close or anything. We were essentially estranged because, as I've told you guys, I've kicked out of my house when I was 17 years old for having a girlfriend, being bisexual. So anyways, we did not have a close relationship. We barely talked at all in the past 10 years, but it still really just made me think about my own mortality, which I think, you know, death does to everybody. And I'm like, you know, if I only make it to the age that he did, like 50 something, I don't have a ton of time to be sitting around waiting until I get it perfect. Like, I can't wait until I get it perfect. I need to try now, because I see, this is not like me being a bitch, but I see people that I feel like are less talented or are less good at writing, which I guess makes me kind of a dick. And I'm like, well, those people are putting themselves out there, and that's why they're getting accepted, they're getting published, they're getting this, they're getting that. They're actually out there trying and getting the rejections and submitting over and over again. I'm like, well, I need to try. I need to at least try till I can, so at the end of the day, I can say to myself, you know, even if I didn't succeed, I pursued my dreams. You know what I'm saying? And that's a big one, is, like, to publish or do something with my poetry, like, get published. I want to be a writer. So that's one of many things, including changing what I want to do with the YouTube channel, and like going back to school and all this fucking stuff. It's very exciting because I feel like I'm finally, you know, dealing with my past enough to the point where I'm ready to, like, get into some of this stuff, like, actually work on my dreams and not just focus on just surviving. Okay, the first book I've got is called Good Poems, and I do not know this editor, compiler, whatever, but essentially it's just an anthology. And I thought it was kind of funny because I'm like, the audacity of someone saying they know what a good poem is and, like, picking them and putting them in a book. I'm like, that's bold. That's a bold choice. And then I also flipped it open, and the first poem in here was very irreverent. It's Poem and Thanks by Thomas Lux, and it starts, "Lord whoever, thank you for this air I'm about to in and exhale." And so we love that. We love when people speak of disregard towards God / the Lord. Also, I just really love poetry anthologies. Like, I feel like I have a bunch, and I kind of like how you get a bunch of authors, like, grouped around a theme, and so you get exposed to, like, a bunch of different poems rather than reading, like, a single author's book. So yeah, I really enjoy anthologies. And the next one I got is called Stride Toward Freedom, the Montgomery Story, and it's by MLK. I had just read his Strength to Love, which is, like, a collection of different sermons that he would have given. So it's kind of like reading a book of essays, except for, obviously, like, they're meant to be preached in a church or whatever. And he did kind of mention in the preface that he felt sort of strange writing a book of them rather than like preaching them. But so that was an interesting experience. I don't think I agree with MLK about a lot of things, but he was right on a lot of things, and obviously like a big part of the civil rights movement and all that. So this, it says it's his account of the first successful large-scale application of nonviolent resistance in America. This is by Beacon Press, which I think prints a lot of things that I'm interested in. So that's super cool. This is actually by him. And on the back it says history, African American studies. So I know that anything like this is probably going to be expensive to get my hands on. Like I saw that it had a textbook sticker on it. So usually when it has that, like I feel like these sort of things are going to be pricey. Okay, the other thing I got, this is Quiet Strength by Rosa Parks, and I think it's kind of, in her own words, talking about essentially what she did. And I don't think she was really the first or the only person to like resist the segregation on buses and such, but I just think that she's the one that happened to become famous, probably because of how, like, I don't want to say for sure because I don't know, but I think just because essentially she was just like a sweet, soft-spoken lady who you wouldn't really expect to stand up to the cops or like get arrested or anything like that. So I think that's kind of why she became this huge figurehead. So yeah, we can add this to my collection. I feel like I'm getting a lot of like, I don't want to say like board books, but maybe like picture books that I feel like are meant for a bit of a younger audience, but like, I don't know, I'm still collecting them. Okay, and the other thing I got is called To Quote a Queer, which obviously like sounds like something I would be into. And it says quips from quotable queers, which the alliteration alone slayed. And I think this is an older book, like 2008, if I'm not mistaken, but it's literally just, there's a bunch of letters and then there's topics under the letters like butch lesbians, life, love, whatever, and then it just has a bunch of witticisms from queer people. So obviously I think this is going to be a product of its time, and then it's going to be missing a lot of like newer queer people that like I would probably note and recognize, but I still feel like it's going to be just fun to like flip through here and just see random things that they've said. Like I feel like I saw one from the author of the Gilda Stories, which I haven't read yet, but I think it's like vampire lesbian something or other, sort of in the vein of Octavia Butler. And then because I'm ridiculous, I got this Dictionary of American Slang from the 60s. And look at this little thing on the back, all the different sections. I don't know if it's focusing. It says slang is the popular expression of many subgroups, some of which are shown here. And then it has immigrants, hobos and tramps. Why is that a subgroup? Baseball players, railroad workers. Why is that a separate one? Navy, Army, narcotic addicts. Okay, why? Literally why? Jazz musicians and fans. This is very specific. So like, anyways, I just like looking through here because I like outdated words because they're weird. So I just flipped open to hog wrestle, which is crude or vulgar dancing. It's just like stuff that we would never use nowadays, but just like my little word nerd brain finds it so interesting. Oh, hitchhike, that's a normal word. Hitchy coo, a phrase endearingly and traditionally uttered by many adults while poking or tickling a young infant. I thought that was coochie coo. Oh yeah, also kitschy coo or kitschy coo. I thought it was coochie coo. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. Okay, and then the other book that I got, this last one, is called Questions to a Zen Master. And I've had one of these books before, like Zen Buddhism, where they ask like the master or whatever a bunch of questions and then like he just responds to him. And I thought it was like a cool format and it was interesting. And so yeah, I wanted to get this one because I found it cool last time, so why not? And the other thing that I want to talk about for this video is books that I am buying people I know for Christmas. Because I love buying people books for Christmas, and also I feel like, it's not that I necessarily am like trying to force them into reading or like force my hobby onto them, but I just feel like, number one, it's something that I know really well just because I read so many books in a year, and I feel like I'm not one of those people that's going to like pick you a book that like I want you to read, so like I'm trying to pick you something that I feel like is relevant to your interests somehow. So it's not like I'm picking something I would want to read, I'm picking something I think you would like to read. So I like to think I'm not a person that's giving you something that I would actually want. Although sometimes I do feel like interests overlap, so that's kind of nice. And I also think, you know, like, okay, the average American or whatever, I think supposedly reads like 14, maybe 15 books a year, and that's including outliers. So for example, me, who reads I think I'm at 170 books this year. I usually average, I feel like 175 or something like that, at least from last year. And then there's also people that read literally one or no books, which would be like my boyfriend. So if you factor in all of these outliers, the average American then reads like 15 books. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, if you have a book there that someone gave you, you might be more inclined to pick it up than if, there are no books lying around your house. So that's kind of my approach to it. And people know that like reading is kind of my thing. Like I'm kind of terrible at gift buying, so I feel like books are a nice, easy thing, that I can give people. So this year I bought somebody Cultish, which I listened to this on audio earlier in the year, and I really liked it because it kind of talks about not really the nature of cults, but sort of the language and the different sort of codes that are used within the in-group to talk to each other, which I thought was really interesting, especially somebody who grew up in fundamental Christianity, which does have its own terminology and ways that people speak about things within Christianity. So I found it fascinating, and the person that I'm giving it to also has a background in ex-religious stuff, Christianity, fundamentalism, whatever. So I felt like, she might find this really interesting as well. And I also know that she's somewhat interested in cults because she's watched documentaries and such about it before. And then for somebody else, I got My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I just think this book, although I think it could have had a better ending, I feel like the narrator is kind of a terrible person, and she's one of those people that's you love her, you love to hate her, but you also love her. The reason that I feel like this book resonates is because even though she's a terrible person, it's very funny and it's very honest. And essentially in this book, she is trying to sleep through an entire year of her life using different just drugs and substances. Essentially she's just a hot mess. And I think we could all relate to just being a hot mess at a certain point during our lives and not wanting to be there, especially with all this COVID stuff and quarantine vibes and not being able to go out. In this case, she's choosing not to go out and interact with the world, and she's also kind of a jerk. She's very rich, privileged, borderline racist. There's all kinds of messed up things, but I also think this book is hilarious. While I was listening to the audio, I was laughing out loud so much. I also got someone Love is a Dog from Hell. These are poems from 1974 to 1977 by Charles Bukowski. And I do love some Bukowski. Obviously, he was problematic in many ways, most notably for his sexism and misogyny, but I do love the heart that he has for working class people, people that most people would consider worthless or whatever. I feel like he is able to find beauty in that, and I don't know, I like him. I know he's a very controversial, polarizing type of person, and it's all these white literature bros that tend to love him and think he's the greatest writer of all time. I'm I definitely don't think he's the greatest writer of all time, but I do think Love is a Dog from Hell. I've read several of his collections and stories, and I do feel like this is some of his strongest work, but maybe I just think that because it's the first book I read. So anyways, the person I bought this for isn't really a reader at all, but I think they might resonate with how just straightforward Bukowski is. It's not difficult to read at all, and it's entertaining. It's funny. So I feel like with funny books, I feel like funny anything, you can often get your foot in the door because people love somebody that can make them laugh. And then for someone else, I got Born by Jeff Vandermeer, and this is essentially a book about a woman and her husband living in this technological dystopia, I guess you could call it. And she finds this creature and names him Born, and then raises him and basically becomes its mother. And it's just really weird. It's a great combination of sci-fi, fantasy, technology, and just dystopian elements. It's combining a bunch of things in ways I've never seen before, but I feel at its core, telling a very human story. I feel like the person I bought this for might really appreciate how weird yet intelligent Vandermeer is. And then a couple more books that I bought. I recently read Greedy, and this was essentially a book of essays on being bisexual, coming out as bisexual, later in life, her journey of figuring it out. And this is from someone that used to write for BuzzFeed, which she never says it by name in the book. So, but it's pretty obvious to tell the way that she talks about it. She's like, oh, I wrote these pointless listicles and da-da-da. And if you search her name, her BuzzFeed articles will come up. But it was funny. It definitely resonated. I don't think there's enough bi work out there at all, works by bi people. I feel like I was starved for some type of memoir or some type of just anything, because it's like, it's not out there. And a couple days ago, one of my good friends that I've had for years recently came out to me as bi, and I was so excited because I don't really have any friends in real life that are specifically bi. Like, I have pan friends and lesbian friends, queer friends, ace friends, whatever, but like nobody's specifically bi. So I was like, yes, we need to talk about queer cinema, we need to talk about this, that. I'm like, oh. And I was like, this is the perfect book to get her, because I just read this, and this is also somebody that figured it out a little later in life, which I feel like later in life, like late 20s, we are kind of later in our lives, but maybe that's just me. So I was like, perfect, I'm gonna get that for her. And then almost basically the same day, I had another friend tell me about their PCOS diagnosis, which is like basically, I think it's polycystic ovary syndrome, where like cysts grow on your ovaries. And like, she's okay and everything, but I've really been wanting to read this book called Ask Me About My Uterus, which is about like the way that women's health is overlooked and ignored. Like, women's pain is not taken seriously, especially if you are racialized at all. And so I have a list of a bunch of books I'm wanting to read on that subject. And I actually did read one earlier this year, which was The Lady's Handbook for Her Mysterious Illness. And that one, I don't know, I got kind of some turfy vibes from it. Like, it was all right. And it talks more about like chronic illness and immune illnesses and such. And I think this one, Asked Me About My Uterus, although that's obviously not the same as ovaries, I feel like it's a related subject. And also, I'm hoping to read it soon. Like, I have it on hold from my library. I usually don't buy people books I haven't already read, but I think just it might be super relevant to her, considering she just got that diagnosis. And also, like, this is a topic I've been interested in for a long time. And especially when it's affecting, you know, the people close to you, the people around you, that just makes you want to read about it even more. And I've also experienced this myself with not being taken seriously in the doctors, not being listened to, not being diagnosed correctly or given the correct help, etc. And then for one of my online friends who's trans, I earlier this year read a memoir. It was called A Year Without a Name by Cyrus Dunham. And this was really good. It was so thought-provoking. It packed so much into like less than 200 pages, and I just really think they would enjoy it. So yeah, probably gonna be getting that for them. Hopefully they haven't already read it. I might need to double check that. But I just adored it. I adored how they gave themselves a new name without, they also like kept their old name. They like combined them. So I really liked that I feel like they were in a process of figuring it out. They haven't totally figured out what they want to do with their name, but just like integrating those elements of like what people know you as, like your past self, and then like who you want to be seen as in the present, like basically about your identity like shifting, and kind of like how it's okay to not have it figured out. And I feel like that's something that Greedy talked about as well, was like there's all these stereotypes of, oh, bisexual people are confused and slutty and da-da-da. And it's like, what if we just accepted the slander, essentially, and we're like, okay, maybe we are confused, you know, maybe we are slutty, maybe we want to have sex. Like, what if we just turn that on its head? And that's not an idea that she came up with. She cites Shiri Eisner, I don't know how to say it, but basically she got me to pick up this book, which I've seen around. It's one of the only books on bisexuality that I've seen around. But so the fact that she cited it, though, got me to pick it up. And she was really good about like citing where she got different ideas from, and she did a lot better job of that in this book than I think I've seen a lot of white people do, frankly. So that was cool. And I've already started this a little bit, and I think it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, so I think any book that prompts me to pick up something else that they mentioned or talk about is doing a good job. As far as what I'm reading, I just finished Bad Fat Black Girl, which is a bunch of essays on like, I don't think she calls it hood feminism. I'm trying to think. I think she calls it trap feminism, which is like a term that she came up with to describe her brand of feminism, which I really like. She starts every chapter of the book with like a quote from like a hip hop song, like a rap song, which I thought was really cool, really unique, and sort of reinforced that like trap feminism mentality, because she's like, yeah, I'm a feminist who also likes, you know, rap music, which happens to be misogynistic a lot of the time, and like, you know, like I just liked that she was very honest about that, about the contradictions and all that. So that was a really good book. And then I also feel like I've just been in the mood for kind of these essays collections. So I picked up Don't Let It Get You Down, Essays on Race, Gender, and the Body, which I haven't really seen anyone talk about. So, and then I also grabbed this. It's called For Brown Girls with Sharp Edges and Tender Hearts. So I think this is similar in that it's going to be a bunch of essays and such. I'm just in the mood for like nonfiction of women of color talking about just different things, different experiences, their lives. Like, I don't know, pretty much anything. I guess to just feel some like solidarity or something. And the other thing I've been trying to read is like nonfiction about how to put together poetry. Like I was randomly browsing my library catalog and I found this book. It's called Ordering the Storm, How to Put Together a Book of Poems. And this is by Cleveland State University Poetry Center. So it's kind of a random, like very small press type of find, but this really helped me. It's a bunch of essays by a bunch of different poets talking about different ways that they organize their own books, different strategies for organizing their own books. And this really helped me to start thinking about my poems, not as individual units, but what are the common themes? How do the themes flow? How do you put together a book that flows well? How do the poems lead into one another? And so this really, really helped me and was very thought-provoking and was honestly great. So after that, I was like, man, I want to read more books that are about poetry. So I grabbed this, How a Poem Moves, a field guide for readers of poetry. I don't know if it's going to be good or not. I also grabbed the updated Poets Market. I already have one, but I guess I just saw the newer version. I was like, why the hell not? And then I also picked this up. It is a poetry handbook by Mary Oliver, which when I took poetry back in college, this was the book that we essentially used to like guide the course. So I wanted to pick it up again and just kind of see and just kind of, I guess, like refresh my memory. And I do remember like some of the strategies that we used out of here, like writing in the styles of certain poets, writing responses to poetry, just like interacting with poetry more. I do feel like it was really helpful like in my growth as a poet. Like I feel like I learned a lot and I was really interested in the class. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to revisit this and see exactly what was going on. I recently bought a Locke's poetry. I'm not sure how to pronounce their full name. Essentially, my library refused to buy these, so I just decided to pick them up myself because I was pissed off, essentially. And these are their poetry collections, Femme in Public, and then Your Wound, My Garden. Now, I already read Femme in Public, and what I've got to say about this is that the photography really makes this stand out. And honestly, I think I prefer when they read their poems aloud and stuff, because like I've seen videos of them slamming their poetry. And I think I like that a lot better than reading it on the page. I feel like just seeing them and hearing their voice adds like an extra dimension. But I do think the incorporation of photography in their book is really unique. And also their pen and just their wit is very, very sharp. Like these are very good poems. So yeah, I'm excited for this next one. And then I've also got American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin. This has been sitting around for a while, but I haven't started it yet. Then I've got We Are Owed by Ariana Brown. And then I've also got Insert Boy by Dana Smith. So yeah, those are all collections that I hope to be picking up soon. And I'm still in the middle of the collected poetry of Nikki Giovanni, which honestly, like I kind of fell off on this, just like I didn't finish Dune. But it's not that I like didn't like it and wasn't planning on finishing. Like I definitely want to go back to both of those. So yeah, that's just kind of where I am at in my reading right now. This has been kind of a random conglomeration video, but it has been a while since I've done an update, almost a month. Hopefully this was interesting and somewhat cohesive. So leave me a comment if you so wish. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.